Hello all, thank you so much for joining us. It's great to have so many people from all over the world joining us for our first speaker series. We are Astronomy in Color. We're a group of Black women, women of color, who are working to really try and transform astronomy, to try and make it a place where everybody can thrive. We started about a year ago. We built a very strong and supportive community. And now we're interested in trying to figure out how we actually make things better, how we make change. And we wanted to invite and hear from women in this speaker series who not only inspire us because they're amazing scientists, but also because they have done incredible work to change their fields. They are really trailblazers, and the changes that they've made have enabled a lot more people, particularly Black women, to study in the sciences. So we wanted to hear about their science and also hear from them about their journeys and any advice that they can give us on how we can follow in their footsteps. We're very grateful for WIPISA, Women in Physics in South Africa, for sponsoring this series. Okay, so our facilitators for today's talk are Kilebukile Bonekwane. Kilebukile is originally from Kimberley and she's studying at UCT. She graduated with her BSc Honours in Astrophysics and Space Science, and she's just completed her master's degree working on research focused on the central stars of planetary nebulae. She'll be starting her PhD next year to work on X-ray binaries with Meerkat as part of the Thundercat project. We also have Dr. Stabile Kolwa, who's currently a postdoctoral fellow at the University of Cape Town. Her research focuses on the environments and star formation properties of radio galaxies to better understand their evolution. Stabile is also interested in finding ways to improve STEM education in South Africa. And finally, Tanita Ramburas-Hurt, who is originally from Johannesburg. She completed her undergrad and MSc studies at Wits, and she's now a PhD candidate at the University of Geneva in Switzerland. She's working on galaxies and looking at a more detailed understanding of the metal content in the interstellar medium and investigating how gas metallicity is related to the gas cycle in galaxies. Okay, so over to you.
Thank you, Prof. Mohammed. Welcome again, everyone. It is with great pleasure to introduce you to our very first speaker. She is a professor of physics at the University of Pretoria, where she also obtained her PhD. She is a South African Research Chair of Clean and Green Energy. Recent development in her lab has been successful development of perovskites and hematite materials for solar energy collection and storage. In addition, her polymer solar cells are at commercial level, where she has successfully replaced TCO for simple and cheap devices. She is specializing in physics of optoelectronic materials and devices, a fan of thermodynamics as temperature changes the behavior of materials. She is an active member of the South African Institute of Physics, the American Vacuum Society and Materials Society. Our speaker is indeed a trailblazer. She is Professor Mmantsae Diale.
Many people don't believe that women can do physics. And therefore, that's why we had this new thing. It's not very old, called Women in Physics, which was born in 2002, when a professor from France, Michel Ducloy, said that there is a problem with women in physics. You don't see any woman becoming a Nobel Prize winner in physics. And also, many countries are not taking it very serious. So in South Africa, we started with Women in Physics in South Africa, where we were considering in 2005, after the first conference in Women in Physics in 2005 in France, we had to comply because we were members of the International Union of Pure and Applied Physics. So we started with PISA here, and let me tell you, when we started, we were less than 25. You can check now, we are more than 200, with many young people who are coming into physics and taking over this leadership of women in physics in South Africa. The number of PhDs then was very, very small. And the number of women of color was also extremely small. But today, we are so very happy to see all of you in physics, astrophysics, astronomy, leading the way towards getting more Black people, Black women into physics. An example of how do you walk through the walls is that in academia, nobody ever tells you when you come in as a first year student, what is the future? Unless if you come from a background where the other trailblazers have already been there. You come into academia and you see yourself passing first year, second year, and your third year, and you, oh, okay, let me do honors. In general, you are actually invited to doing honors, and you say, oh, I've done well in my honors. So one professor in the department will invite you to do masters, and you say, oh, yes, I finished masters. And then that's when you realize that, well, you were on your academic way towards a PhD. Then you do PhD, you're not even aware where you're going to work, what is going to happen with you. But before even you finish your PhD during the time, or when you are really a very good student, you are being given a position of a junior lecturer. Immediately after getting a PhD, you are given a position of a lecturer, and then you work for some 2 years, you get that of a senior lecturer, and you work very hard to become an associate professor. And then you'll work extremely hard to become a full professor. In Switzerland, I'm very happy to hear that someone is doing a PhD in Geneva. I wish that we can keep the connection, because I go to Switzerland very regularly to my research center there for my collaborators. In Switzerland and Germany and Russia and UK, for you to become a full professor, go through something called habilitation in English, but in German is Habil. So what you do is that you present your 12 consistent papers on one topic in science, in physics, in a clear direction of what you are doing in physics, so that other people can say that you have done well, you can be called a full professor. But this, to become a full professor in those countries, you have to train PhD students. You must show that you have taught PhD students, master students, you have been a lecturer at the junior level, then you can be called professor, full professor. So walking through walls. The society do not expect a woman to do physics. They say physics is not for the faint-hearted. Well, it's a wall, just leap over it. Just go over it and win and show the world that you'll make it. Very many years ago, when I was an undergraduate student, I had a very hot debate a heated debate with some two male students. One was measuring in mathematics and both of them were measuring in mathematics and physics. And then they were asking me, how do you think you'll make it by measuring in mathematics and physics? And I said, what do you mean? And they said, those two courses are very difficult. I said, oh, I like doing things that are called difficult. That means I'm doing the right thing. That time, it was when apartheid in South Africa was very rife. Therefore, I went to a historically Black universities. I went to a University of Bophuthatswana. And because the people who chose for me to go there, they said to me, in normal Black universities in South Africa, you will not pass that easily, because this thing that very few people will pass physics in those areas has been very strong in making sure that other people don't go through. You know, they would tell us that when there are two of you in a class doing physics third year, the professor will come or the lecturer will come and say, oh, you're so many. Only 50% of you will pass. And that's arrogance. For now, the world is different. I'm saying it's a wall, just leap over it. When you look at this picture that I have shown here, showing entropy, if the particles represents gas molecules at normal temperatures inside the closed container, which of the illustrated configuration comes first? Look at the bricks, they're easy to see. If you toss bricks off a truck, which kind of pile of bricks would you more likely to see? You'll see the disorder first. And after seeing disorder, then you can move to order, which is entropy. That's how it happens as you are growing in your research. It is about order and disorder. So you have to find yourself and make yourself orderly. I had a very nice information about one student. This Nshamu is a person who passed PhD in chemistry, was telling me that in a place called Malamlele in Limpopo, a high school student was asked about her future career. She in her street in that location, she knows this lady, Nshamu. She said, I want to be like Sis Nshamu and go to school at UCT and go into an aeroplane and come back home. And I want to be called doctor like Sis Nshamu. This young person did not know about the careers in chemistry and physics and science. She was just seeing a prosperous young lady who is doing well. So as you move along in life, know that other people are watching you and they want to be like you. This is me. How did I walk through the walls, my journey? I come from a hardworking family. My father was a photographer developing photos at home, meaning that I know the chemistry lab from home. My mother was a dressmaker, and I think that's mechanical engineering. So my parents were my role models. My mother was, I call, the woman with power. She was able to navigate herself through cultural oppression. So if you look at this picture here, this is December at my home. You know, they brought wood with a donkey cart, and I just went on top of a donkey cart, and I just like it. It's not long, this is 2017. So my mother, dealing with cultural oppression after my father's death, she was asked to stay home for 1 year before she started working. And she asked herself a simple question: what will my children eat? So she looked at them and said, I will go and do work and feed my children. My dad was a businessman who really didn't want to bow to working for another person. So he worked to make sure that he made himself enough money and did his own business. So I come from a place where we are hard workers. So I'm a person, I'm a woman, I'm a married woman, I'm married to a husband, a medical doctor, but I didn't find him a medical doctor. We come from the same background, same village. And we have one child here, this tall guy who got his business science degree at the University of Cape Town and electromechanical engineering at the University of Cape Town. 8 years at the University of Cape Town, and he passed well and he did well, and he has got a company called GreatMatch, and all the people there just write GreatMatch and go into www.greatmatch.co.za, which is something that UCT likes a lot. So I like doing community service. I pay fees for people. And because I read a book a long time ago called How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. I must say women students can be very difficult. They generally don't believe in a professor who is a female. And so you have to work harder, double as a woman. I read books, I still read books to develop myself, not yet Uhuru, meaning not yet Freedom, and this one that I've told about, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. I read Das Kapital by Karl Marx. Recently, I read a book called Walking Through Walls. That's how I got my topic for today, written by Catherine Shovlin. And well, let me tell everyone, I like fast cars. I compare fast cars with Newton's laws. The body will remain in a state of rest or of uniform motion in a straight line unless it is acted upon by an external unbalanced force. And to calculate the external unbalanced force, you have to use Newton's second law. And then for every action, there's an equal but opposite reaction is Newton's third law. There are women astronomers out there. In South Africa, I met a lady called Claire Flanagan, who's working at the planetarium in Johannesburg, and she obtained a PhD at Rhodes, and she was explaining to me about this pulsars. So what I do in life, this clean energy is to reduce the carbon footprint. The green is the renewable energy, and I'm focused on solar energy, which is free but not accessible. And then this I call electricity from the sun, from gadgets to harnessing this, using the devices that we talked about. I look at solar panels, the blue stuff that you see on top of rooftop houses. They give solar energy during the day, but these solar panels convert electricity to convert solar energy to electricity And therefore, you need devices to harness this solar energy. So I do solar cells, moving from semiconductors, down from solid state physics, quantum mechanics, statistical physics, mathematical methods of physics. And I really like solid state physics because it embraces all the physics that you can think about with your diode equation that comes from mathematics and statistical physics. That's how I make my solar cells. So I'm an experimentalist. I like students who are familiar with instruments. Even if you don't know those instruments, come in, we teach you how to use our instruments, and you become a specialist in the subject matter. And we always make you to do a lot of literature review so that you can work with us in that area. Recently, I've done this polymer solar cells with metal nanoparticles, and I've grown semiconductors with low cost, which are metal semiconductors like this hematite, and then the temperature effects on metal oxides and devices. That's why I say I like thermodynamics. So we do current voltage measurements. That's my research in my area, in my lab. Then we're trying to use a storage, which is not a battery. And the storage that we are using is hydrogen, which comes from water. When we split water and we find oxygen and hydrogen, the process when you use photoelectrochemical energy, photoelectrochemical devices, the process is clean because you produce hydrogen and oxygen. You release oxygen in the atmosphere, you capture it and use it for oxygen purposes. Like now with COVID-19, we need a lot of oxygen so that people can start breathing better. And the semiconductors that we are using are metal oxide. So with the hydrogen fuel, we call it a solar fuel. We use the metal oxide called hematite, but the general name for hematite is rust. And the chemical formula for hematite is Im2O3, so that we can produce these photoelectrochemical devices and do the current voltage measurements so that we can be able to use hydrogen as a fuel for devices. Okay, that's what I do in the lab. That's what inspired my left part of the screen. You know, you've got this green leaf there where we can say the leaf is the oldest solar cell in the world because the leaf is excellent at converting solar energy into energy, where you have the chemicals like chlorophylls, and then the ultimate is that you get food. All right, I have a big group of students because I had money for the past 3 years. Next year is the last year of the 3 years. And my group members have got 19 MSc students and 7 PhD students and 2 postdoc fellows. So I have a big group. I do collaborate with Tanzania. I love Africa. I love being out there. On the metal oxide, I collaborate with Tanzania. And then on, and we have a PhD student there who's registered in Tanzania and can come to South Africa to do research on those techniques that they don't have in Tanzania. And that's the University of Dar es Salaam. I also collaborate with the University of Zambia. And we are the ones who have done well on polymer solar cells, where our work is ready to be scaled up into bigger polymer solar cells. And we used metal nanoparticles to do the improvement on the existing solar cells. We have 3 MSc students and 1 PhD students. 2 of them are registered here in South Africa, 1 in Zambia. The PhD student is registered here in South Africa, but recently we have 1 new lecturer at the University of Zambia who's going to be a PhD student in this project. In this project, we're using zinc oxide as the metal, the transparent conducting oxide, and this zinc oxide is able to, we can use it as an electron transport layer in the solar cells. So we use flexible solar substrates to make this polymer solar cells, that they become completely flexible like plastic. The other collaborations that I have strong collaborations in Switzerland. COVID-19 has prevented me from going to Switzerland because I really want to go to Switzerland regularly. That's why we're doing our PEC device. We have a house in Switzerland at a laboratory called EMPA, which we have isolated from the grid. This, we don't use any electricity from outside. We harness solar energy with solar cells during the day, and we use photoelectrochemical devices to produce hydrogen, which becomes our energy in the evening when the sun goes down. And I collaborate with Israel on solar cells made of perovskites. Last week, I signed up with people from China who will come and work with me on this ion migration in these devices. Okay, I really like African feminism. The beauty of African, you can see this one is the model. I like work. And these two young ladies, twins, who come from Gabon, and all this. I just like African beauty. The thick black hair, the dark skin that seem to have a special black makeup. So I really am with you, ladies and gentlemen, on the women of color, black women, going into astronomy. I just want to give this advice that women do not try to go anywhere else. In astronomy, there are a lot of opportunities, especially with our SKA in South Africa and the Meerkat. We have got a lot to do, and don't ever think about where am I going to work. You will definitely get a job in those areas. We want to build capacity, because capacity building is actually my favorite. I would give my money for capacity building in Africa. I just get bored of going to a conference in Europe, and we are the only Black person in that big conference. I wish that many of us can come in and we share the space. Thank you so much for listening. I want to acknowledge the University of Pretoria. Even now, I'm in their office, meaning that they are funding the space, the National Research Foundation, for giving me some money to continue with the work, and we are funding the chair. And the Mmantsae Foundation, you know, Mmantsae Foundation have now come on board. They are very interested in solar energy, and therefore they have come on board to support my work. Thank you for listening, and it would be nice to have questions. I'm so happy that I made the 30 minutes.
Thank you so much for a very interesting talk, Professor Mmantsae. It was really great hearing about all the leadership aspirations you have for us as Black women. And also, it was very interesting to listen to you speak about your work in trying to sustain our planet. I will now hand over to Stabile for the question and discussion session. Over to you.
Yes, thank you very much, Professor Mmantsae Diale. This was a very inspiring talk, very informational. And one of the, I guess, most important aspects that came up during a lot of the questions that were asked during registration was about finding inspiration to continue on in astronomy, in STEM, especially as a marginalized individual, as a woman of color. How do you find that inspiration? So we can look at your career and your life and what you've been able to achieve and find inspiration from that. So in particular, I would like to find out from you, do you have any insights on how to handle imposter syndrome when you don't believe that you are capable of carrying out research or being successful in a STEM field in astronomy simply because of a lack of confidence or a feeling that you're just not good enough? Can you elaborate on ways in which you've been able to overcome that if you've had to, and how we can move forward with confidence?
Thank you so much, Star. What I would say to you is that it is very tough out there. I had two people, old professors who are retired, confessing to me that they did not support me when I needed support. I think it's because they don't know how to do it. Nobody did that for them. Recently, I was talking to Professor Winfield here at the University of Pretoria. She highlighted this fact that some people don't know how to take others by hand and show them how to go up. In addition to that, Professor Winfield said to me, as you are navigating and going up in your ladder of the career, be prepared to listen to what other people will say to you. The third thing is that some other people are not helping you, not because they don't know how to help, but it's because they want to make sure that you struggle like they struggled. They don't just want to give it freely. Say, we struggled. Why should this person just get it freely? But guys, all of you, you can get it freely from me. I don't want your money. I just want to help to see the capacity being built in such a way that all the barriers that have been there in us and in the society are broken. So what I would say to you is that read a lot. In your specialization, like those who Kilebukile is going to for a PhD, you are starting the PhD, just read a lot around astronomy, around your subject area in particular. You don't have time for YouTube and movies and whatever. Maybe Friday night you can go about, going to have some beer or some coffee, but don't stay long, come back. Your job is different. Read a lot. And when you read a lot, you start becoming a different person. For me, I would like to see you going to conferences. I'm going to establish a personal funding, if all goes well financially, where I would just give you some 50,000 rand for you to go to an overseas conference, where you are just going there to listen to other people and learn from them. That's how I have made it. I actually paid for myself to go to overseas conferences when people were not prepared to pay for me, so that I can hear what other people are saying. It is not that I'm a genius. Yes, I am. Please don't be scared to tell people that you're a genius. But it's not because you are a genius, but it's because you are reading a lot, that you know what other people are doing out there, that you get excited with new technology, new stuff, and you can move on in a better way. Thank you.
Okay, that was a brilliant, brilliant answer. Indeed, you have to be well-read and knowledgeable in your field, and that is a wonderful way to overcome a feeling of being an imposter, because your brilliance will shine through, and you will produce excellent research, and to the point where no one can deny that you are excellent, and your imposter syndrome will not be a problem. Thank you very much. So another question that was asked was, in your opinion, what are the necessary practical steps that need to be taken in order to increase the representation of women, specifically in senior research positions?
Okay, when we start, we realize that women in physics, it's a big problem. It's a worldwide problem. And this year we were supposed to go to Australia for the International Women in Physics Conference. And then what happened is that this pandemic came in and took our space. What I would like to say at the high level is that during your PhD, please work hard. Make sure that you publish papers, so that when you go to an interview with all others, you have a better chance of getting the job by your publications, not an imposter. You know, your publications will speak for you. At the end of your PhD, if you have published 3 papers, you'll have done well. Then after that, you get a job, in particular, usually it's in your university. And then when you get that job, it's either it's a postdoc, work for 3 years, please take that postdoc, it's worth it. I was doing postdoc and also teaching at the same university simultaneously. One semester I'm teaching, the second semester I'm just on postdoc. That means I allow other people, my PhD supervisor, to guide me into the next level. So if you can, please take a postdoc. If you take a postdoc for 3 years, you'll find that you are able to come back to South Africa. Please come back, don't stay outside there. And then you'll be able to get a position, and you'll be going up the ladder using what you have, not some favorite, you were favored because you are black, because you are a woman. Work hard and compete with all those who had the better background than yours. Thank you.
Okay, so we will end the registration question session with one more question from Sam Ligodi in South Africa, who's also an astrophysicist and I believe a postdoc. The question is, did you ever lose momentum in your work or productivity or in your personal life? And if so, how did you overcome that?
I did lose momentum. I did lose productivity, especially after 1994. It was such, people were claiming stuff, you know, people who knows nothing were claiming that they know this, they know that. Until I realized that my loss of momentum is disadvantageous for me. I must recuperate, start, and focus. And this is how I must say that I was lucky that my husband was very supportive and I only had one child. But the way I overcome the problem was going back to the lab, because I'm an experimentalist, and focusing on one project, doing it from the beginning to the end. When I have finished this project, remember when you're doing a project, please note that when you're doing a project, planning the experiment, doing the experiment, getting the results, changing the results until you come to the end. And whilst you're doing that, you are reading literature continuously. So you are working on your reference list. And thereafter, you write a paper on that one project. It may be accepted, it may not be accepted, but you have done one project successfully. And that will take maybe 1 to 3 months or 3 to 6 months. It depends. But just focus on yourself without being selfish and arrogant. Make sure that you accommodate other people. Do time management properly. When people are in social media, try to avoid that social media because it's not helping you, it's taking your energy. Focus on your goal and your time management. When a person has come into your office, make sure that that person stayed very little time, and be brave to tell a person that I'm still very busy, please go. We'll see each other sometime. Some people spend hours in your office. Why? They're wasting your time. So I have learned this the hard way, and therefore I don't have friends. I struggle with friends because I'm not doing what they're doing. And because I'm a woman in physics, I struggle to get women in physics of my age who can be my friends. But well, I like my young friends, like Shazrin, my young friends, real young friends, like Dr. Malebutibani. They help me to know that as I continue with life, I have other people who rely on me, who really looks upon me, and I'm there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Mmantsae Diale. This is very inspiring and all your words are very empowering, and you're full of plenty of wisdom that you can of course offer to the younger researchers among us, those who are starting out our careers, and we will, I'm sure, implement your advice in a way that will help us empower ourselves to be successful. So we'll now direct our question and answer session to Tanita, who will ask questions, or at least vocalize questions that have been asked in the chat room.
Thank you so much. So we have a few questions from the Zoom chat. One of them says, I don't see a lot of solar panels anywhere in Cape Town. What must be done to make this a more widespread technology? What are the biggest challenges?
The biggest challenge is the government and policies. The solar panels are a very important part of our community. The problem is the government policies. In Cape Town, remember, you have Quebec. So with Quebec, which is a nuclear energy center, it's like people are saying, oh, we are comfortable with Quebec, we're fine, we don't need solar panels. But during the time of President Jacob Zuma, we had what we call the next energy landscape must be such that it's an energy mix. So energy mix means we have to have the clean energy, nuclear energy, and whilst we are still using coal energy, which is very detrimental to all of us because it's contaminating the environment, it is important that people like me who's in the space and many other people who are doing the solar energy, clean energy. In Cape Town, you also have wind energy. You can go out there with community radios, TV, and speak about this topic such that people can stop all the myths that you know about solar energy. And the last thing is that solar panels are still very expensive for a middle-class person. So not even for the poorest of the poor, it's still very expensive. So in 1976, the solar panel was about 76 US dollar per kilowatt hour, but it has gone down to lower than 30 US cents for now. But for us who are not using dollars, it's still expensive. Thank you. Thank you, Tanita.
We had a comment in the chat from Raikancione, who said, OMG, I studied my BSc at the same campus in Mahikeng. So he was really excited to hear that from you.
What is her name?
His name is Raikancione Diritse. He's based in Cape Town. He's a UCT student, so he was very excited to hear that.
Nice.
Another question that we have is, this is from Isabella. She says, Prof says she had to stop working to pay attention to her son. This is actually a good one for me too, where I've just got a little son now. What advice do you give for women who are puzzled by that concept, having to stop their work in order to start a family? Is it possible to come up with maybe support somehow to allow women to still be able to do both their work and raise children? So really, how do we manage this work-life balance between family and raising children and our research and careers?
It's a topic that has been going on for many years. Many years. It has been studied, and there is a lot of publications on, we call it balancing family and career. I would say pack your PhD. You can pack your master's. Okay, it's better to pack your PhD. That is, after your master's, if you have found love, you can look at starting a family. But make sure that your partner, your husband, your man understands that you are still have not yet completed what you want to do. Do not be consumed by that. Because when you are no more teaching, when you are no more connected to what you have been doing, it's easy to lose track. So I would advise that when you are like packing your PhD, don't completely get out of the lab. Just to reduce the time that you are focusing on your PhD, like taking a half day at the lab and the other half day you are doing your work, so that you continue to be connected with your profession.
Right.
Yeah, thanks.
That sounds good, like good advice. Maybe we'll go to another question. I have some more on that, but I can take the whole hour just talking about how to manage babies and family. There's one from Busisire. She says, how did you know that you wanted a career in physics?
Ooh, this is very good. That's why I'm speaking about grades match. Please look for this grades match. It is like an NPO, but it's also a business where you can take your child in there at a very lower age, like at grade 10, 11, and 12, because they work only with high school students. That will help you to find a career. I'll tell you, many of us found ourselves where we are, not because we wanted to be there, but there was no career guidance. So for me to take physics, I didn't know about electrical engineering, chemical engineering, all of those things. But I'm very happy that I took physics. I really wanted to become a medical doctor, but I couldn't stand smells, hospital and their blood and all of that. So I realized that I'm doing well in physics and I'm going to continue with physics. Actually, from my undergraduate degree, I got distinctions in mathematics. But I chose physics because the professor in physics was always attracting me into physics. And then he's the one who guided me to do honors in physics. And then my undergraduate professor from Renewable, Professor Diale, also followed me and asking me, what are you doing? And I'll tell him. And at UCT, Professor Craig Comrie, he has passed on now. I was there in Cape Town. We call it the Timber Labs. We used to call it National Accelerator Center. So I know that XRD lab at the University of Cape Town, I have worked with Professor Comrie very closely. So I had that kind of encouragement to remain in physics. So yeah, I'm very happy that I chose physics.
Yeah, that's great. And I think the point you say about making sure that you are true to yourself. So, for example, my parents also wanted me to be a medical doctor, but just saying like, wow, I don't like spells. This is not for me. I had a friend who really wanted to do oceanography and she wanted to go out onto the sea, but she would get very, very seasick. Sometimes you have to really just know yourself and know what's better for you. So I think that was really, really great. Okay, some more questions. This one says, this one is from us. So as we're working to try and push for change and try and make things better, we're trying to think about what exactly we should be asking for. And we were wondering, what policies do you think would help to transform our departments and our institutes? What should we be asking for? If we have the ear and we could ask for anything, what are the things that we should be trying to get from the higher ups, the people that are in charge, in order to really make it possible for us to change?
You are very lucky that I've been in the South African Institute of Physics for many years. I have been involved in developing policies in the South African Institute of Physics. Some other people do like asking questions. You are not in politics. I said, you don't know what you're doing out there. We're not all going to be Julius Malema, eh? Yeah, so I would want you to keep the network that you have started. Support that network very well. You can include me as part of your network. Also, make sure that you ask your university to invite, maybe once a semester, to invite an astronomer to come and talk at one of your webinars or seminars or colloquiums. You can talk to your HOD there. What is his name again?
At UCT is Patrick Vogt.
Patrick Vogt. Talk to Patrick to make sure that visiting professors are more of physics. Are more women. Physics, women astronomy visitors who come and give a colloquium there. And then in addition to that, you must talk to all those leaders like Patricia Whitelock. Well, she's retired, but there is also other people at Wits like Claire Flanagan. Be prepared to open up. Just influence by just asking your HOD like Patrick Vogt that you really want to see women being supported. And particularly, please stress that you want to see South African women supported. Every country should stress that we want to support women in our country. Mm-hmm. That's why I work with the people in African countries. I go to Egypt, I work with people in Egypt, Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, the University of Zambia, Makerere University, University of Dar es Salaam, and University of Nairobi in Kenya. I love going to Africa. I love going to Mozambique. I love going to Botswana. And when I have a student, a PhD student from another African country, I want the professor or the lecturer in that country to continue to be involved with the student, so that our capacity in Africa is very, very bad. And if the capacity is bad for women, what for men, what more for women? So please make sure that we push this agenda of capacity building for Black African women in astronomy, because that's the future. Because SKA is not there in South Africa only for South Africans, it's also there for all Africans. And in addition, that what I want to tell you is that there is a vibrant community of African astronomy that is going on. I'll send the links to Shazrin, and then you can share it with the whole community. Thank you.
Okay. And then finally, I guess, so for people who are not women of color, Black women, they're asking, how can they help? What are those things that they should be trying to do in order to change things?
We want other people of different colors to be prepared to host a Black woman in their labs.
Mm.
It will be very nice when a professor in astronomy like Jocelyn, whom I believe maybe now she's retired, I have met Jocelyn many times, is to invite a Black woman from an African country to come and spend some time in your lab as part of her PhD. You know, I have here in my lab right now, Joan Talibao, who is from a University of Rwanda, who is now, I went out to look for money for her to come and spend 6 months in my lab.
Mm.
And I'm so excited about it. So let us all be prepared to put a hand in helping other women. You can look for funding from somewhere else, and there are lots of organizations that are prepared to fund a lab that will take an African woman into their lab for some time, 6 months, 3 months, one year, or even giving them a position as a PhD student in your lab. That's how we can help.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I think I know of some funding, and I'm sure you probably know many, many more funding ways to do this. So what I think we'll do, we'll try and put that on our webpage also, so people can go there and look at those links and try and link up with students, and we try and help facilitate that and make that happen. I think that's a really, really useful thing to do. I think that most people are finished with their questions. We had one question of what kind of work can I do after getting a degree in astrophysics? This is from Henry. I don't know if you want to say something on that one, or I'm also happy to say. Yeah.
There is so much work at SKA. We have built those, we've put those satellite dishes. We need you to go there and work there. So the work is just galore. There's lots of work. In academic institutions, people are waiting for Black people to come in.
Also, just to add to that, I mean, even if you're not doing astrophysics research, you can get involved with building the telescopes with, you know, the engineering side. You can get involved with the computing side if you want to do the data science. There's a lot of different ways to get into it if you don't want to just stay in the astrophysics, which I'm an astronomer, so I would say stay with the astrophysics and look at the stars and do the research. But yeah, there's many, many different options after. I think that's all that we have time for. It's now just gone 4 o'clock. We want to really, really thank you so much, Professor Diale, for joining us, for sharing your journey with us. It was amazing to see some of the pictures that you had, to know that, you know, you've made it with a family, coming from a village, like all of those things. You walked through those walls, jumped over those barriers, and really are inspiring for us. And we thank you also for setting up Women in Physics in South Africa. I mean, it's had a really huge impact, and it's allowed us and groups like us to grow and to host this series. So we're really, really grateful for having you join us and for your time. And thank you to everybody who's joined us from all over the world. We hope that you will join us for our next talk, which will be with Professor Shobana Narasimhan next week on Tuesday at the same time. And yeah, it's just great. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're most welcome. Bye.